We'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. Welcome H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council microphones are open for roll call. Here.
Councilmember Akeson. Councilmember Sear.
Here.
Councilmember Grab. Councilmember Jensen. Councilmember Montalongo.
Here.
Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Euler. Councilmember Riggenbach, Councilmember Ruckriegel, and Councilmember Turner.
Present.
You have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'd like to invite everyone to join us and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a couple of proclamations this evening, and we're going to start with Kick Butts Day. Whereas smoking kills more than 400,000 Americans each year, representing more deaths than from AIDS, alcohol, car accidents, murders, suicide, drugs, and fires combined. Nearly 9 of 10 smokers started smoking by age 18. In the Tri-County area, approximately 1/5 of 12th graders smoke cigarettes. And whereas the FDA considers e-cigarettes and juuling a tobacco product and regulates them as such. One juuling unit is equal to 1 pack of cigarettes, which is equal to 200 puffs. In 2018, more than 3.6 million middle school and high school students used e-cigarettes. And whereas Kick Butts Day is an annual national initiative sponsored by the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids that empowers elementary, middle, and high school students to be leaders in the fight against youth tobacco use and exposure to secondhand smoke. And whereas the children of Peoria, Illinois will no longer tolerate the tobacco industry's efforts to manipulate them into buying lethal and addictive products through insidious advertising campaigns and marketing practices. And whereas we oppose the sale, advertising, and marketing of tobacco products to children and support the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and their initiative to be the first tobacco-free generation. Now, therefore, I, Jamardis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby declare March the 20th, 2019 as Kick Butts Day in Peoria, Illinois. So we have 2 doctors here with us and also a couple of young men who are going to give us a little bit more information about this special proclamation. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone, the council and the city of Peoria, for all their support. We've been doing this for about 7 years, and each year we've always tried to do something even bigger. So this year, for our Kick Butts awareness, we are actually taking a trip down with a lot of the school kids who have sent in these pledge cards that they have pledged to say we are going to be the first generation of tobacco-free, nicotine-free generation. And we're going to go down to Springfield and meet with our legislators and discuss with them about the importance of tobacco awareness and nicotine awareness in our youth. We know there's an epidemic that's been rising in our schools. Everybody knows it. And I think this is the time to actually bring this to the forefront. I do have some news to share. House Bill 345 did pass today. So that motion for Tobacco 21 is going to move forward to our Senate. And so with all your support and blessings, we hope to make an impact when we go down and talk to our legislators with our youth next Wednesday. Thank you.
So as we're talking about doing these pledge cards, these pledge cards were handed out to middle school and high school children in our area. Over 5,600 pledge cards were sent out not even a month ago, and we received over 2,000 of them back. 2,000 children just in our area who've pledged to be completely nicotine tobacco free. And out of those, we have 27 different zip codes represented. And out of them, they will be going to Springfield to see how this process works to actually make change. And they will have a voice and a hand in making that difference. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all your support all these years. Yeah. Thank you. All right, great.
Can we get a picture?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have the Dunlap Valley Boys Basketball 3A runner-ups. I think they're going to come in the side door here. Hey guys, thanks for coming down. Congratulations. Whereas the Dunlap Valley Boys basketball team is the first Dunlap Valley team to advance to a state championship game, and whereas under the leadership of the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association Junior High Boys Coach of the Year, Tyler Jacksey, and assistant coaches Mike Peterson and Caleb Jacksey, the team ended their season with the final record of 23-4. And whereas the Dunlap Valley Middle School boys basketball team learned to be winners on and off the court under the guidance of Coach Jacksey. His ability to remain composed during stressful game situations was the key to this team's success. The coach always treated the referees with the utmost respect and never used a missed call as an excuse to not win a game. Because of the respect that the coach displayed, the players exhibited the same type of composure when playing. And whereas the most valuable quality that this team possessed is their ability to play together as one with passion. These student athletes grew closer every day of the season and fully embodied the meaning of teamwork. Now, therefore, I, Jamardis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby recognize and congratulate the Dunlap Valley Middle School Boys Basketball IESA 3A runner-up. If the coaches want to come over and say a few words and maybe introduce the team, you're welcome to do that.
Okay, there are a lot more adults in here than I thought there were going to be. I'm used to talking to kids all the time. So, I'm just going to keep this pretty short. These kids, you know, as was said in kind of the little introduction, they have exceeded all expectations this season. The first thing that I wrote on the board before our first game, because this was my first year as the 8th grade coach, and the thing that I wrote on the board before our first game was effort. That's the only thing that I had written down. And I told them before the game, you know, I don't really know how this is going to go, to be honest. But, you know, at the end of the day, I just want us all to know that we played with the utmost effort. And these kids carried that with them throughout the entire season. You know, there were some words said about me, but it really wasn't about me. I mean, I think I was a good person to kind of help bring them together a little bit, but it was the kids that did it. And it was all the kids. And the way that they played together as a team with effort throughout the entire season was a true testament to what can happen when you may not be the most talented, you may not have some 6'4" stud, but you have you know, a good group of kids that like each other and play hard together. And I could not be more proud of these kids. Their parents, I know, are extremely proud. The school is proud. And it was a really fun season. I also couldn't have done it without Coach Peterson, Coach Card, the new high school coach. He's done a great job helping me out too. So thank you for recognizing us. These kids definitely deserve it. But I also told them, you know, awesome way to end the 8th grade sports year, but we're not done yet. You know, we want to see the continued success in high school. So thank you.
Councilman Graham.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting held on February the 26th, 2019, and the special City Council meeting held on March 5th, 2019, as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Are there corrections or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we're at the township portion of the meeting. 19-070 is a communication from the town officials with a request to approve the agendas for the annual town meeting.
Okay. Trustee Graham.
Move for approval.
Motion to approve, seconded by Trustee Turner. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-071 is a request to approve the February 2019 actual expenditures and to approve the March 2019 anticipated expenditures for the town of the city of Peoria.
Trustee Graham.
For approval.
Seconded by Trustee Turner. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at the consent agenda. 19-072 is a request to approve an addendum agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation in the additional amount of $4,830 for a total agreement amount of $40,871 for the city's participation in sidewalk, traffic signal, and resurfacing costs associated with the improvement of Knoxville Avenue. 19-073 is a request for the city manager to execute an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation in the amount of $23,000 plus contingency for the city's participation in resurfacing and patching costs associated with the improvements of Knoxville Avenue from Fayette Street to Main Street and Main to Southwest Adams Street. 19-074 is a request for the city manager to execute an agreement with Illinois Department of Transportation in the amount of $71,990 plus contingency for the city's participation in resurfacing ADA improvements and curb and gutter replacement costs associated with the improvement of Illinois Route 29 from south of War Memorial Drive to Abington Street. 19-075, which has a yellow handout on your desk, is a request to authorize the city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the City of Peoria and the United Association of Steamfitters Local Union 353 from December 1, 2018 through November 30th, 2022. 19-076 is a recommendation to approve a resolution to increase the compensation of the city manager by $3,787 to be allocated as a bonus salary increase, deferred compensation, or any combination as deemed appropriate by the city manager. 19-077 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending the City of Peoria 2019 revised budget relating to the general fund to recognize the increase in violation fines and fees related to Chapter 5 and Chapter 13 of the Code of the City of Peoria in the amount of $100,000 and the increase in expenditures for temporary help and software in the amount of $75,000, and this requires a supermajority vote. 19-078 is an appointment by Mayor Ardis to the Advisory Commission on Human Resources with a request to concur of Catherine Cross. 19-079 is an appointment and reappointment by Mayor Ardis to the Peoria Housing Authority with a request to concur of Kadar Hefner. 19-080 is an appointment by Mayor Ardis to the Advisory Commission on Human Resources with a request to concur of Alexander Ikaju. 19-081 are appointments by Mayor Ardis to the Peoria Urban Forestry Advisory Board with a request to concur of Douglas McCarty and Randy Swenson. 19-082 is a request to receive and file the month ended January 31st, 2019 unaudited financial report. And number 19-083 is a report from the City Treasurer, Patrick Nickteen, for the year 2018 with a request to receive and file. And that completes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any items to remove from consent this evening? Councilman Jensen.
19-076.
Okay. Councilmember Euler.
19-075.
Any other items to remove from consent? We have a motion to approve the remaining items. Councilman Regenbach, seconded by Councilman Turner. If there's no further discussion, please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-075 is the collective bargaining agreement with the Steamfitters Local Union 353, and there is a yellow handout on your desk pertaining to this item.
Okay, Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled this off consent to express the fact that I will be voting no on this. As in keeping with all of the other contracts with pay raises, I can't support that until we have our city on a long-term positive financial trajectory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone? Councilmember Regenbach, motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Turner. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 9 ayes, 1 nay. Councilmember Euler. Madam Clerk.
19-076 is the request to approve the resolution regarding the compensation of the city manager.
Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've pulled this because I won't be supporting the increase after our last budget and having to eliminate 32 public safety positions. I can't in good conscience vote in favor of this, so that's why I had it pulled.
Councilman Turner, motion to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Discussion. The communication outlines it, but I will just mention for the listening public that the city manager has not had a raise for the past 3 years. So he was awarded a raise. He decided not to take it due to the budget situations that we were in. So the council did award an increase of 2% this year and advised that it wasn't one that could be turned down. So I think it's important for people to know that the city manager has worked without additional compensation for that period of time. I'm seeing no other lights. Please cast your ballots. The motion passes with 7 ayes, 3 noes. Voting no, council members Akeson, Jensen, and Euler. Madam Clerk.
We're at presentations. 19-084 is a request to receive and file a presentation regarding the East Bluff Community Center.
Well, we'd like to welcome Tim Cunningham and his team from the East Bluff Community Center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and citizens and city leaders. On behalf of the East Bluff Community Center, I'm delighted to stand here in front of you this evening and give you an update with much of our board and many of our friends in the audience this evening, to give you just an update of what's happened over the last 7 or 8 years at the East Bluff Community Center and where we are today and where we see the center headed in the future. So I'm going to start by telling you that this really is a feel-good story. This is a real hometown story. It's a story full of love and passion and vision and community. The East Bluff of Peoria roughly occupies the territory bordered by Prospect Avenue, Knoxville, Forest Hill, and Glen Oak. And for over 100 years, the East Bluff has been home to thousands and thousands of families, and it continues to be the home of thousands and thousands of families. And it was a phenomenal, and is a phenomenal place for people in the city of Peoria to live. At the heart and soul for over 100 years of the city of Peoria were 7 schools. 4 grade schools: White School, St. Bernard's School, Von Steuben School in Glen Oak, and Woodruff, Spalding, and Academy of Our Lady, all taught students and children from the East Bluff. And in addition to that, those schools were the heart and soul of the families. They were the community centers in the East Bluff for the East Bluff families. And over the last 30 years, 5 of those schools, with Woodruff being repurposed today, but 5 of those 7 schools have closed for a variety of reasons. 2 of them, Glen Oak and Von Steuben, still remain viable and still remain healthy and active, but there was a tremendous void. And in addition to the void created when those schools closed, the demographics of the area changed, leaving a significant gap in what families needed to operate and to live. And so about 2011, some city, church, community leaders organized efforts to create a gathering place for the East Bluff. And several of the members around this horseshoe were a part of that discussion and dialogue and that 1.5 year or so long contracting and legal structuring process. And so in 12, articles of incorporation were put in place, a 501c3 application was filed, and an initial board, and Councilman Turner was part of that initial board of 5 members, were put in place. In 2013, after about a year worth of negotiations with St. Bernard Parish and the board, the Community Center board signed a lease with the St. Bernard Church, a 1-year lease for $1 a year rent. The caveat there was that the board would be responsible for all maintenance on this 100-year-old building. Interesting trade-off. And the 501c3 was granted in 14, but in the beginning of 13, the place launched. Now, Mayor, you and several other council members around here were a part of that early Saturday morning basketball program, the rebound program that was started at Glen Oak School and ended up at St. Bernard Gym and ultimately at the East Bluff Community Center. Well, that started out as a Saturday morning with 20 boys, roughly, and 4 or 5 adults housing basketball. And in the last 6 years, we've seen an increased amount of community significance, steady growth in the programs, the activities, and the overall usage of this center. Today, we have permanent residents. There's a food pantry that operates every Saturday morning. Boys and Girls Club these are our two anchor tenants, if you will. Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA operate there. Turning Point is a substance abuse program that operates every evening of the week, every week of the year. Peoria Opportunities, and Jane Genzo is here this evening, have their offices there. WAZU radio station is housed there, and the Peoria Secular Humanist Society rent a room from us there. And actually, volunteers from that Humanist Society comes in every Saturday morning at the food pantry and cooks breakfast for the people who are receiving food handouts that day. So it's a phenomenal story. I'm going to go, now let's take a look at 2018. From 20 young men on a Saturday morning in 2013, last year over 12,000 people were served, individually served, in sports programs, community education, recreation, civic events, food pantry, addiction support. Over 12,000 went through the doors. And in addition to that, another 19,000 children days took place by the Boys and Girls Club. So 31,000 plus people were served in the community center last year alone. Again, from 20 people 6 years ago. The word is out. The credibility is there, and the board and the volunteers that have been a part of this since the very beginning should be extremely proud. We are extremely proud of what's taken place there. Just a quick snapshot of what it takes to run the place. Our expenses run about $65,000 to $75,000. You'll see a couple spikes there. We had a couple of very large boiler repairs and a freezer repair, about $20,000 worth of capital repairs in the last 2 years. But it takes to operate the place and this is with no salaries, this is with virtually a shoestring budget. Most of that expense is operating the building, just keeping the lights on and the heat and air conditioning in the building. And we've had a nice steady stream of income for the last 4 or 5 years to keep up with what it takes to operate the facility. And just as an FYI, of those $87,000 of income last year, 3 donors contributed half of that. So the Episcopal Charities Foundation of Chicago, the Chicago Diocese, is our single largest contributor. In addition, we have Morton Community Bank and John Wetzel's PhD Services have contributed about $45,000, $43,000 over the course of the last year. What it's going to take to move forward is a lot more than that. And so what we're in the process of doing now is implementing a strategic plan that we updated last fall and winter. We put in place a strategic planning committee of our board and about 15 community leaders, and you'll recognize many of the names on that list of people who we gathered together to put together a strategy and update where this community center could go from here. You'll notice on the left where it says the current board members, there are 5 names that have asterisks next to them. They were actually in the right-hand column when we recruited them to be part of the strategic planning committee, and they signed on to be board members after the strategy process was finished. So our board members are are well suited to do what we're trying to do, and we're thankful for those that helped us with the process. So what did we do? Well, we identified and defined a mission, and we said our role in life is to foster community engagement and neighborhood stabilization. And we're going to do that so that we can provide a vibrant place to gather. And we have twofold pieces of that. One is make sure the process, the building is in place, and that we're going to partner. The board does not sponsor, pay for, launch programs. The board's role is to find partner agencies, partner organizations to come into the venue. And so this is driving our future. And our vision for the place is to be everyone's first choice gathering place. Everyone's first choice. I like to reference and say it's the country club of the East Bluff. That's what we want to see. And so where are we going now? We're pursuing thoughtful, aggressive growth in usage, partnerships, awareness, and funding. And those are our 4 goals. And so in order to do that, we think in order for us to take the credible start that we've had over the last 6 years and take 31,000 to 60,000 to 80,000 to 100,000, it's going to take a lot more effort. And we've got a 100-year-old building. So we're going to significantly improve the campus, expand the services. Awareness campaign is one of our goals. This is part of that as well, and we thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing us to stand here and make you all aware of what's going on. And we've set a $1.5 million funding goal for the next 5 years to be split evenly between operations and capital improvements in the building. The boiler is 100 years old. We're paying $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 a year to repair it. So those are things that have to happen, and we're working on that right now. And so I just want to say that what we've done to date has been done with 100% volunteer effort. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of people and organizations who have given their all to this place and have gotten it to where it is today. And I want you all to be aware that the neighborhood is vibrant, and this is going to make the neighborhood even more vibrant, where we can be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So I want to just tell you that there have been so many organizations that have contributed with volunteers and individuals. You'll see some pictures there. We've had a group of Bradley students, 25 Bradley students, once a quarter, come and spend Saturday morning with us, just helping out. Businesses and neighbors, dedicated board members. The board for the first 6 years was the staff. And our executive director, Jim Combs, treated us as his staff. And we've had numerous generous donors, a lot of neighbors, and our visionary founders, Jim Combs being one of them, Father Tom Stone, Eric. A lot of you around this table have been a part of that, and so for that we're very thankful and very appreciative. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, and just let you know that this is a phenomenal, I'm very proud to be the president of the board this year. It's a phenomenal story, and we can't wait for what the next 5 years is going to bring.
Thank you, Tim.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Cunningham while we have him here? Councilman Riggenbach first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Cunningham and board members for coming tonight. I think this is a phenomenal story, and the fact that it's been volunteer-driven just makes it even more phenomenal and sustainable, I think, at so many levels. And I think we've all served on boards that it seems like we're the only one who ever shows up to the meetings and does things. Well, that front row, why don't the board members stand up? Because not only are they committed to making this the place, the country club of the East Bluff, but they come to a council meeting, they hear about it as well. So, and there's a couple people that didn't stand up that aren't technically on the board, but are very much institutions in the East Bluff neighborhood. So Will, Linda, and Jim, thank you for what you do to keep that neighborhood thriving. And I think the awareness is what's truly needed, and I just salute you and thank you for those efforts. And personally, I'm committed to helping raise that awareness however I can.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Ruckriegel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for a presentation tonight. And thinking back to a couple months ago, I was there on a Saturday, and I think there were 7 things going on at the same time. We were unloading some food for the food pantry, and the food pantry was going on. The humanists were doing a breakfast for those that were waiting in line. There were people out in the garden picking vegetables. We had a basketball program, and then the gym was being transitioned over into an event for that night. And somebody was looking and taking a tour. I think that their church needed a place to sort of meet for a while. And all these things were going on, and there was a true sense of community. It was one of those perfect days to be able to walk through to see everything going on. So with that, congratulations on everything you're doing. You're setting, I think, the example of what we can do in Peoria and what we do in Peoria when we actually pull our resources together. It's very easy to have that, what are we missing or what don't we have, as opposed to what can we do. And this is, I think, in that sense. But for those in the audience or that are listening today who want to follow the progress of this, what are some easy ways that they can do to follow what's going on?
Well, certainly you can connect with our Facebook page. We have a website that is in process right now. We've actually hired a professional. Those of us on the board tried it several times, and we have 4 or 5 different versions of our website. So that's going to come to an end, and we're about to launch our updated website. Those are 2 really good things. Stop over anytime. Come in. See what's going on. See what's happening there. It's a wonderful place. And I'd add, if I could, just for a second, I think this could be an urban redevelopment white paper, because every city in the country has 100-year-old school buildings that are abandoned. And I think we have done some really fun and exciting things. The one thing the intangible element is the passion. The passion of those who sought to develop something and put it in place. If I was going to give anyone advice, I'd say, don't just take the building and a process and some money and expect it to be successful if you don't have some visionaries and some passionate people, some passionate leaders. And that's what the folks in the front row there are and have been.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation. Thank you so much. I've been over there several times over the years, but I didn't realize everything that goes on there. So I appreciate that, and I'm wondering, could we get a copy of the PowerPoint, all the council people? Oh, okay, great. So it's a wonderful thing. I'd like to see maybe you guys be a model for other neighborhoods and other areas across the city, and maybe work with groups who might want to do the same thing. Well,
that's part of our outreach in the next couple of years, is to reach out to others in the community as well.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more lights, but let me just add my thanks, Tim, to you and your team. Incredible amount of hard work has happened up there. We're very thankful for it. We know, much like many areas on the south side of Peoria, there's a lot of history down there, a lot of pride, and the same thing is true in the East Bluff, and a lot of good people are really coming out. I know Councilman Regenbach asked them all to stand, but maybe I'll put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you all to come on down here and have Tim introduce you all, even the ones that didn't stand up. Come on down. It'll only take a minute, and then I'm
going to introduce Willa Lucas, who is every Saturday morning runs the food pantry. She's not a board member, but she's very active. Steve Fairbanks is a board member. Bob Bueller is our treasurer and board member. Jane Genzo is a board member. Shannon Teshy, a lot of people in this room know. Charles Kim is a board member, and part of the reason for this evening, Jim Combs is our executive director, was the president of the board for the first 5 years, and he was the visionary guy, and so I think he's part of the reason why we're all standing here this evening. So thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Tim. And as long as we have Jim here, we'll just ask him to come on over here for just a second, because the council is really glad that you guys came down tonight, so we had an opportunity to not just recognize all the good work that was going on at the East Bluff Community Center, but also to recognize Jim Combs for his leadership for many, many years on the East Bluff that transcends and comes way before all the stuff at St. Bernard's happened. So whereas Jim Combs grew up in the East Bluff neighborhood and attended St. Bernard's grade school, the president of the East Bluff Serenity Neighborhood Association and has always been a strong advocate for the neighborhood. And whereas Jim has a big heart for the East Bluff residents and has persistently led efforts to stabilize and improve the neighborhood that he loves. And whereas in 2009 he saw the need for more youth activities in the East Bluff and corralled Father Tom Stone, Wayne Cannon, and Tom Ertmode to establish the Rebound basketball program in the gym of the closed St. Bernard's School. He continued to bend the ear of anyone who would listen and recruited additional volunteers, including State's Attorney Jerry Brady, Councilman Eric Turner, State Representative Ryan Spain, and Bob Manning, among others. And whereas in 2011, when Jim saw the need for a neighborhood gathering place, he relentlessly pursued the idea of repurposing the old St. Bernard's School into the East Bluff Community Center. And whereas Jim spent his career as a teacher and administrator, and then brought those skills to his activities in the East Bluff, serving as the community center's executive director since it opened in 2012. And whereas Jim Combs' love of the East Bluff has always been the motivating factor to grow the East Bluff Community Center into a vibrant place to gather and be a stabilizing force in the East Bluff neighborhood. Now, therefore, I, Jim Ardis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby celebrate the volunteerism, hard work, neighborhood appreciation, and development of the East Bluff Community Center by Jim Combs in Peoria, Illinois.
Open your books to page 25 and we can, thank you. It is good to be here. This is an act of love. I could not have even begun a lot of these things we went through without good old Father Stone, who's in Chicago now, I suppose, running things up there, and Eric, and a couple of these people around this table, always there to help. It's just been a great time, and I'm getting young now, and I'm beginning to think about maybe something else. Eventually, I'm going to be, believe it or not, I'm going to be 80 in July, and I'm sure they're probably thinking of ways that they can maybe get somebody to replace me. But it's been great. These are lovely people. We're going up to Chicago next week for the Episcopal Charities meeting, and they're just good to be around. My last thing would say, come up and see the building. Come up and see what we've done. Take your shoes off, walk around. It's just a good place to be. And again, the whole thing is love and positive, and I watch these meetings every Tuesday. I actually do. I watch them until I fall asleep. But that only is late. That's late. That's late. That's late. But the fact is, this is a positive thing. I just want you to have some good fresh air and some good positive things. So thank you all very much.
And I want to make an amendment to everything that's just been said. And I see Dr. Bill Collier in the back of the room, and he has been a behind-the-scenes guy for the last 5 or 6 years, but also served as a president for the most of 2018. And Dr. Collier, we're very appreciative of what you have done, what you are doing, and what you have yet to do. Let's get a picture right here.
Okay, we have a motion to receive and file that presentation. There's no further discussion. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-085 is a request to receive and file a presentation regarding South Village TIF job training grant programs.
Thank you. Which mic you got the rep?
Oh. One. Hi. Can you hear me now? Good evening, everyone. I wanted to take a moment as we're coming through the first year of the South Village TIF Job Grant Program to hear some of the stories of the progress that a couple of our organizations have made. And just as a refresher, this program is a grant program based on TIF funding in the South Village to support job training, occupational training, job readiness, and job preparation programs. 5 grants were awarded in early 2018, and we're just closing the first full year of participation within this grant program. These are critical person-to-person grassroots actions that make significant difference in the lives of the participants and in the surrounding communities. And just to really consider the value of these programs, a handful of people going from no wage to working wage is hundreds of thousands of dollars of economic activity that's suddenly happening. And so as we listen to these programs, I really want to reaffirm and celebrate the progress that's been made to date and the commitment of these programs to continue to provide service to many of our citizens in Peoria. Oh, all right. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry. It was a hearing test. Sorry about that. And so I just wanted to have these. We have 2 organizations with us tonight. We have Julie Schmidgall, who is the executive director of METEC, and Lorraine Bryson, the president of the Tri-County Urban League. And what they're going to share tonight is a basic overview of the programs that they provide, some of the results that they've had specific to the grants program and what we've provided for them, and then things that they've learned along the way that they want to share about the program and the grant program overall. So let's start with Julie, and I've been advised.
Need to make sure that the switch is on there.
Better now? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak. I want to talk just a little bit about our program. Our project really has expanded since the inception of this grant. We've been pretty active in this grant for about 6 months. And we have many different opportunities where we work to assist clients in finding work. And our main focus really is to try and remove barriers to employment. It's that removing of barriers and providing additional education where we really find it helps a person not only gain employment, but then continue to sustain that employment for a period of time. We have multiple facets. Our first facet is our job club, and that's a class that meets on a weekly basis. We discuss important job-related issues such as searching for jobs on the internet, how to apply for jobs, maybe what's your personality type, what kind of work would be good with your personality type, what do employers look for when they hire, how to conduct oneself in an interview, what are good topics to talk about in an interview, what to wear to an interview, conflict in the workplace, how to work for a boss that doesn't like you, and then, of course, we're always talking about budgeting. When you make that first paycheck, how do you continue to have money through the end of the week? Another aspect of our workforce development is the sealing and expungement education. We find that a number of clients that come to us have some sort of background, and so we have a relationship with Prairie State Legal, which helps to educate individuals, and we work with them to see if any of their backgrounds are eligible. And then we also work with a caregiver class, and this meets for 12 weeks. And it is an introductory education class to healthcare. And once an individual graduates with a certificate, they are able to do senior care and sitting that is non-medical. And then it also gives an introduction to the health field for candidates that may be interested in pursuing more. And then, of course, we always do different job fairs, and we've done a handful of them, and we did them quarterly with a number of employers. We have actually found that it is more beneficial to work with employers, single employers at a time. And so we've actually started doing this almost weekly since February, where we highlight one employer every week, and we invite individuals that would be interested in that particular field to come in and talk with the employer one-on-one. And then specifically for results in the last 6 months, for instance, our caregiver class, we have had 25 overall individuals graduate from that, while 2 of them have been in the TIF district. We have had 9 particular clients that have come in and received education and increased their soft skills and some hard skills. We have had 3 particular individuals gain sustainable employment and continue to be employed. And we have another individual who actually started a not-for-profit organization herself, along with 2 other individuals that were in one of our classes. And they actually host a food pantry on a regular basis at the Wraparound Center. So we have wins in our office of individuals who came to us unemployed or regularly not consistently employed, and have moved to having additional skills, having additional education, and being able to go to job interviews and know how to conduct themselves and gain sustainable employment. Let me talk about and what we learned. So what we learned, and something that might be more beneficial, is the TIF district is very particular. And we have service a lot of individuals. For instance, we have taxes that we do every year, and we service maybe 800 families, but we are finding that actual TIF residents are not coming as much as we had thought that they would be coming when this grant was granted. So we have really changed our marketing and targeted marketing specifically in the TIF district to meet the parameters of the grant.
Next, we're going to ask Lorraine Bryson. So thank you. Next, we're going to ask Lorraine Bryson, who is president of the Tri-County Urban League, to also offer commentary on her programs as a grant recipient.
Thank you, Deborah, and good evening. The Urban League is really pleased to be able to operate our job readiness training employment program. And we're looking at individuals that live specifically in the South Village TIF. Our goal is to provide them with career pathway exploration. We also do job readiness training, many of the things that you've heard in the other program, as well as career placement. And we also specifically focus on certifications in the various occupational skills training areas. We were contracted to serve 10 individuals for this particular grant, with a goal of 60% of those individuals achieving positive outcomes from the program. And we have served and selected those who walk in. Many of you know the Urban League has a long history of providing employment programs. So when individuals come looking for employment, we see where they live, make sure they live in this TIF district, and then we enroll them in this particular program. Clients are first assessed to try to determine their interests, their past work history, and to set goals. Many of our clients are chronically unemployed or they have no work history. So we're working with the hardest to serve. We provide them with job readiness training, and it's offered to kind of prepare them to get ready for the workforce. That includes several different sessions. We often do it in a cohort setting, in a group setting, but we've also done it individually, as these are oftentimes walk-in individuals. And we're looking at those things that we all take very much for granted in getting ready for work, setting a schedule, being prepared, transportation. If you have children, making sure that you have a backup plan. If one of the kids gets sick, to make sure you can stay at work. All of those things that we take very much for granted, we're working one-on-one with our clients to make sure that they're successful. And as I said, our main focus is trying to get them an industry-recognized certification. That's a nationally recognized certification that if they were to leave our area, they can take it anywhere in the country. And having that extra certification, it just makes a person much more employable. Many of our clients may not necessarily choose college as a first choice, so if they can have the certification, that makes them much more employable. Our ultimate goal, of course, is job placement, and then we want them to retain that job in order to empower them for success. In terms of our results, as I said, we were contracted to serve 10 individuals. We've actually served 13 that live in the TIF area, so we're 130% of goal. 8 of those 13 were ex-offenders. So we have taken people who have not been productive members of society and helped them to become productive members of society from that TIF district. All 13 of our participants, or 100%, increased their skills. They completed job readiness successfully and have completed the program. 10 of the 13, or 77% of them, earned an industry-recognized certification. That's either food handler, and as you know, no one can work in a fast food even without food handler certification in terms of how the temperature of foods and those kinds of things. We have some forklift certifications, as well as we had our first CDL certification just the other day. So that we're really excited about that. The career interests that our clients have been interested in are manufacturing, transportation, logistics, hospitality, and also the building trades. 85% of those 13 were placed in jobs, and they have retained those jobs for at least 3 months, and 64% of them are still employed a year later. So we're extremely excited about that. The average rate of pay was $11.08. So I think the minimum was $10 an hour, and the highest was about $18 or close to $19 an hour. So if you look at that from an economic impact, that comes out to full-time positions for 11 adults at that average rate of pay comes out to $253,510 in 1 year. So that's significant. 55% of those who were employed, of the 11 employed, have earned a pay increase in the last year. And so we now have some productive members from this TIF district that are paying taxes in our community. Some of the lessons that we learned is in order to make an impact in this particular area, it's necessary to have the resources to actually assist and provide a holistic program. And we want something that's very comprehensive. There are many barriers that our clients face to employment, so we really need those supportive services. We need stipends. We need training dollars to pay for tuition for some of those certifications, and frequent incentives to keep people motivated and staying on track. Another thing that we learned is that a long-term commitment is what's needed. A 3-year program, not an annual where you don't know how you're going to be able to continue serving the individuals. And then additional resources would also provide us the opportunity to do some targeted engagement as opposed to the passive engagement of those that we're serving, seeing if they live in the TIF district. We would be able to target specifically, do some marketing in that area, and expand it a little bit more. What we did, because the grant was reduced from what we originally applied for, is that we used our other services at the Urban League to support this program as well. And that includes anywhere from other supportive employers that we've worked with, as well as our career closet, if they needed that, our child care center, if they needed those services. So any way that we could wrap our arms around them, we tried to do that. One of the things that I would like to do with continued additional resources would be to partner specifically with an employer as well as certain career fields. For example, there's a great need for health care providers, home health care providers. We could partner in another program. We partnered with a nursing home where we were able to pay the tuition out of the grant, and then that nursing home immediately hired them once they got their certification. So those are the kinds of resources that we could put to this particular area to really have an impact in the TIF area. And we're just really pleased once again to have such success in a short period of time and look forward to continuing to serve this population.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. I really appreciate those remarks from both of you. And I want to thank you both for taking the time to come and speak with council tonight. I'd like to turn to council and see if there are any questions you have or comments on the programs you've heard about.
Thank you for the presentation. Councilwoman Akeson is first.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The information you've just delivered is really inspirational, actually. And I read my council communication through my iPad, and I don't have any other documents other than just a short description. There's no numbers. You've really provided lots of good data. So am I missing something? Is there another data sheet someplace?
Our process was so quick in trying to engage this conversation that we didn't require a document from our speakers tonight, but I'm happy to follow up with the talking point notes. It's going to be less formal, but I'm happy to.
Well, I would be interested in knowing what the grant amount is, the number of people served. You've mentioned all sorts of really good opportunities for outreach and partnerships and other, I don't remember the word you used, it was really great, the other amenities or the some of the other supportive services. I mean, you really packed a lot of good information in this, and I'm especially interested in the partnerships that may not be formalized right now, but the necessity perhaps to do that. And then I'm also interested to know what's the likelihood of this grant being offered again, or you mentioned that not knowing for sure. You know, I think that all of us, especially considering how much criticism the city gets for having a whole demographic that seems to be without work, and you've identified all sorts of what you called barriers, and you're trying to address those, but I don't think we have a good quantitative idea of how many people you're impacting. So if Assistant City Manager, if you could follow up for me, I would really appreciate more meat so that the next time someone says we're not doing anything, you know, pointing to this is really great. And I appreciate, and also where does these services take place? I mean, the Tri-County Urban League has a presence, but I don't know about the other grantee, your location.
Sure.
So that's about it. That's a lot of requests in one, you know.
And our organization
2 minutes.
is METEC, and we have our building is the old Harrison Library, part of the public library. It's across from Harrison Homes.
Okay. All right. Well, well done, ladies.
Thank you. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some of the same questions as Councilwoman Akeson, and maybe at least one of them, Assistant City Manager, you could answer. What was the total budget for these TIF funds for the year?
The total granted per successful applicant was $25,000. No one has spent that full amount of money yet, none of the organizations yet. There are still, the total that were granted, we had 5 grantees awarded, and there was an additional $25K that were set aside in case of, and so to date, that's kind of the level of award. And I actually am really proud of that when I consider the award level and the kinds of economic return that we're really talking about when we're making this type of conversion in terms of economic participation of our citizens.
So was the TIF funding that we approved for this about $200,000?
$150,000, I think, in total.
Okay. I think this is a great use of TIF funds, so I would support expanding it and doing it again.
That's fantastic to hear. Right now, we're in the midst of administratively securing funds and extending the time period for which they can use those funds. And then our plan is in the coming months to talk to you about what kind of more extended commitment might be appropriate for these types of programs and how we might proceed. So that is definitely the programmatic outlook we have at this point.
Okay, and as a follow-up, who are the other 3 grantee organizations?
Sure, we have Sherry and Carl Cannon have an elite program. We have Gifts in the Moment and the Woodruff Career and Technical Center.
Okay, and are they all basically focused on the same thing, removing barriers from employment and doing job training?
Yes, absolutely. That focus on job training, occupational training, job readiness, and job preparation, that's a requirement of the grant. They each have a different lens of the types of activities that they're going to have dominate. And then also in these less mobile communities, the location of the services is also very important. So this constellation is actually, I think, sort of a requirement of completeness of service.
Well, thank you for presenting this tonight. Great programs. Good. I'm familiar with both Lorraine's program and Julie's, and been to both sites. So keep up the great work, and I'll advocate for expanding what grant money we have from the TIF to expand these programs. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Mr. Mayor. Director Rattler, did you just say that the 5th recipient was the Woodruff Career and Technical Center?
Correct.
How, obviously they're not located in the South Village TIF, so
It's service to residents. Students coming there.
I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I think this is incredible what's being accomplished. That just feeds into our discussion from last week about TIFs and how the funds are used. So as long as the recipient resides in the South Village, that's the only requirement?
Or it can also be an employer. So it could be an employer, a business association, nonprofit, but the training can be through an employer that is located in the TIF or to an individual that resides in the TIF.
Wonderful. That's creative use of TIF funds, and I hope the listening audience is paying attention. Thank you.
Councilmember Montalongo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very good presentation. Very happy to hear information that you provided us. I just have a couple of questions here, and maybe you covered it. There was a lot in there. As far as some more information and/or data, so particular age groups, men, women, and as far as minorities receiving the training, as far as African American, Asian, or Hispanic, if you have numbers for those, that would be very helpful too.
And I'd like to say too that we provide quarterly reports, so all of this data, I just happen to have my spreadsheet with me. All of our residents are 61605. I don't know race, but I would assume that they are predominantly African American. And in terms of gender, it looks like we have 2 females of the 13.
And we can report back the rest of the numbers. And so we are just at a cut point right now where we're receiving year-end or quarter-end reports right now. And so as those close out, we'll be able to give you like the first year snapshot as a set of summary data per your request. So that'll definitely be something that we can follow up with.
Sure, and just our demographic, we have about 80% is African American of our individuals that we serviced, and and 3 of them were women, most of them men, and most of them are over the age of 40.
And ours are 18 and above, mostly 25.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more lights. I would like to add my thanks as well for the presentation. Very good information. I think it's very encouraging. You know, we put a lot of focus in this particular area in the community for the last several years in particular, and to see results from these groups are very promising. So it looks like strong support for continuation here. I also wanted to mention, unfortunately, Councilwoman Moore was here, but she was called away. She was very supportive. She already had gone over the presentation and so on. So apologies for her not being here. Needless to say, there would be a lot more accolades, but I think it's the information is very well received nonetheless. So we appreciate very much for your attendance tonight.
Thank you.
We have a motion to receive and file this presentation. Councilwoman Jensen, seconded by Councilman Turner. Please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at first readings. 19-086 is a request for a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Code of the City of Peoria regarding commercial uses of rights-of-way.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. What you have today is the first reading for an ordinance change for rights-of-way, and really where this came from was starting last summer as part of the work the I-Team was doing on West Main Street. They come up with a few ideas, and one of them was the idea of this parklet, which parklet is just an extension of the sidewalk that allows people to have an area to sit, maybe have something to eat or something to drink in front of a business. So with that in mind, a mock-up was made, and we actually went out and installed a parklet on West Main Street as part of a pilot project. So since that was successful, we looked into our ordinance back in October, or actually I started in August, I believe, to try and bring it up to speed with what's happening today. So that's really what this is an opportunity to look at what we currently have as far as the sidewalk cafes, and then try and make that work with things like parklets.
Okay. Questions, discussion on the first reading? Councilwoman Akeson.
Thank you. Director Lewis, I appreciate this effort to enhance our city streets and the public right-of-way, and we've had some conversations yesterday and today, and I'm hoping that the council will embrace additional requirements for live plant material so that in exchange for the public right-of-way for a business to expand their footprint, the citizens can see a greener, more beautiful city, which is one of our city's strategic goals. And even though it seems like a small opportunity, every opportunity that we miss, then we don't create the kind of city that people imagine. So I would like to give you some direction to evaluate what types of minimum standards we could write into this so that we at least get some live plant material incorporated into the designs.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councilwoman Akeson's position because we kind of worked very hard to make sure that that was included as part of the sidewalk ordinance. So I hope when it comes back there will be some minimum green requirements included. I did have some questions about the proposal as it relates to parklets, and I'm glad to see this coming. I've had other business owners approach me about doing a parklet similar to the one that the city helped the neighborhood do on Main Street, and I'm wondering if it's possible to, and you probably already considered this, expanding it so it's not just limited to restaurants and food markets, because I know of some business owners even near on the West Bluff that are not restaurants or food markets that have expressed an interest in doing a parklet at their own expense.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that and see if there are other opportunities for uses along those lines.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Gribb.
Thank you very much. The first one we had was on West Main, and I remember that warm day that we had the rollout. I see our Chief Innovation Officer in the back of the chamber. But the devil's always in the details. And I do want to see more of these, but I want to see them greener. And I also want to know who is responsible for maintaining them, picking up rubbish, refuse, whatever. With the experimental one, I understand that was something we were doing, but as businesses want these, what requirements will they have in terms of maintenance?
Yes, we agree that this is something that we would want to make sure is being maintained. Since this is in the public right-of-way, this will fall on Public Works' responsibility to make sure that those types of things are being taken care of.
So now, if we have the sidewalk cafe permit issued, it's a commercial, let's say it's a commercial permit fee, and we have some parking spaces involved, and the business is paying for those, are we still going to be responsible, the taxpayers, people of the city of Peoria, I'm just asking, first reading, responsible for making certain that we don't have litter, trash, refuse left behind?
Yeah, we will. I think that the maintenance of these things, and perhaps we've done a poor job in the past of the sidewalk cafes and making sure that they have been maintained and up to our standards. We haven't had a permit engineer with the Public Works Department for several years prior to now, so we feel with that addition to our staff that we'll be able to manage that workload.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Thank you very much for all the work, Chief Innovation Officer as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further, Councilwoman Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a follow-up question with regards to the parklet permit fee. I'm wondering, do you know does Peoria Heights charge a fee for putting parklets in?
I don't know that. Anthony, would you know?
Okay, because I guess my question is, I understand doing a fee for maybe if they're putting the parklet where there were metered spaces where we received money, but I'm not quite sure if I understand the rationale for charging $350 per non-metered parking space.
Yeah, part of that would be for our staff time to go out there and put parking blocks and delineators in those areas to have that area blocked off.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. If you could let us know about Peoria Heights before the next meeting or before we consider this again, that'd be good.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilman Gribb.
Which really, honestly, that's quite a deal. Especially if we're maintaining them and picking up refuse and rubbish and so on. It certainly wouldn't deter me if I had a business. I think that's a very modest fee. I hope it's not too low. I hope you won't have to be coming back in a year or so saying it's costing more. So thank you very much. This was great, great first reading.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no further lights, so we would have a motion to receive and file. Councilman Sear, seconded by Councilman Turner. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-087 is a request for a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 27 regarding taxation, and that amends many articles of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to the calculation of penalties for late payments of taxes pertaining to hotel, restaurants, amusement, utility, motor fuel, water utility, gas utility, and alcoholic liquor sold at retail establishments.
Thank you. Director Scroggins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we're looking at here is under our current code, when tax payments are late, they are charged a 5% penalty and then 2% interest every month after that. Our current new software system will allow for a penalty and an interest calculation. It'll allow for one assessment. So what I'm asking here is that we change the penalty to 3%, which would be added monthly. So if it's late for 4 months, it would be that 3% 4 times. It's revenue neutral for the most part. If they pay early, we may lose a little bit of penalty, but if they wait 12 months, we'll gain that difference back. I think this will make us much, I don't think, I know it will, it'll make my department much more efficient when it comes to calculating taxes, because we'll be able to use our new software to do it for us.
Okay. Questions for Director Scroggins? Clarifications? Motion to receive and file. Councilman Euler, seconded Councilmember Ruckriegel. Please cast your ballots. The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at regular business. 19-054 is a request to amend an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to violation fines and fees.
Okay. Welcome, Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This item and the next item are the amendments that were discussed at the previous council meeting. Be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Questions for the Director? Councilwoman Eggleston?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Turner. Is there any discussion? Okay. I'm seeing none. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-055 is a request to amend an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to violation fines and fees.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the same item for Chapter 5.
Councilwoman Eggleston.
I move to approve.
Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-056 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to inspection of dwellings.
Okay. You want this one, Councilwoman Eggleston?
I move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Discussion, Councilwoman Jensen.
I would ask that, based on some feedback that we've received from several property owners, and I just talked to the city manager about this, to amend the motion so that we add a hyperlink after each section where it just says that the property owner must comply with the requirements of the adopted code standards of the City of Peoria. So every time it says that about each subject, then the city will add a hyperlink to where that requirement is actually in the code. So all the property owners and the people can go online and can just check what those standards are.
Okay. Thank you. The maker of the motion and the seconder are both supportive of that. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at unfinished business. 18-231 is a request to approve the purchase of the Simantel property located at the foot of Spring Street.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff would ask for a 2-week deferral on this item. We anticipate that we'll be receiving the appraisals finally tomorrow. So my hope is that we'll be able to have those attached, posted to the web, sent out to the interested parties, and be able to act on this item in 2 weeks.
Councilmember Sear, motion to approve deferral, seconded by Councilwoman Jensen. Discussion on the deferral? None. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
18-275 is a request to defer an amendment to Chapter 13 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to refuse containers until March 26, 2019.
Motion to defer, Councilman Montalongo, seconded by Councilman Riggenbach. Discussion on this deferral? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-057 is a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class 01 arterial office district for a preschool for property located at 3406 North Rochelle Lane.
Councilmember Montalongo.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item.
Motion to table, seconded Councilmember Akeson. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-051 is a request to adopt an ordinance establishing and implementing a program to charge mitigation rates for the deployment of emergency and non-emergency services by the Fire Department for services rendered by the Peoria Fire Department.
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's still enough unanswered questions on this, not least of which is the Fitch study, so I would ask for a 2-week deferral.
Motion to defer, seconded Councilman Turner. Discussion on this deferral? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Yes, 19-067 is a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt or the recommendation from staff to deny an ordinance amending an existing special use ordinance number 13932 as amended in a Class C2 large-scale commercial district for a shopping center to waive the parking impact fee for property at 7425 North Grand Prairie Drive, commonly known as the Shops at Grand Prairie.
Councilmember Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to defer until meeting of May 28, please.
May 28th, deferral, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
19-064 is a request to defer to the March 26th regular City Council meeting the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance amending Appendix A, the Unified Development Code relating to off-premise signs.
Okay, we have a motion to defer. Councilmember Jensen, seconded Councilmember Euler. Discussion on the deferral. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
If there's no further unfinished business.
Any unfinished business tonight? Unfinished. Councilmember Akeson.
Thank you. Councilmember Riggenbach just mentioned the Fitch study, and I don't know if my questions about the Fitch study should come up now or in new business, but we were all given many of us were given a preliminary presentation by the Fitch consultants in October of last year, and it was we were told that it would be coming before council on the October 23rd in advance of the budget discussions, and that presentation never came to the floor for council review, and then I know that I asked to to learn more about when it would be coming, and then I was told it would come out in January, and now it's March, and I would like very much to have that brought forward in 2 weeks.
Thank you. It is my plan to have the fish consultants back here in 2 weeks to give that presentation. Fully anticipate, we had a conversation about 10 days ago that they anticipate that they'll be here as well. So they'll be here. My hope is that they'll be here with all that information for you in 2 weeks. One of the delays that we've had with that is that we've had them been working on some recommendations on the dispatch center side of things as well, to making sure that we're operating under best practices or looking at what changes may need to be made within the dispatch center to be able to give you those recommendations as well.
I really appreciate it because the impact is considerable, and I know that when I went through the overtime dollars that we spend, I was really surprised to see that it's over, well, it's $4.8 million in overtime money, which is a lot. And I'm hoping that the Fitch study, could, and not all 4.8 million is in what the Fitch study is going to be reviewing, but a considerable amount of it is. So I want to be sure that we're not going to hear oops, they can't come, or oops, it's not going to take place, that it's a firm commitment that we will get this information in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional unfinished business this evening? Unfinished? Madam Clerk?
We would be at new business.
New business for the council tonight? New business? Councilmember Sear?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a request from our city manager to add to our next meeting the finance department going through a software conversion that we're all aware of. And I know the reports that we're getting don't look anything like they used to. And I know the older reports are, they're just going to change how the accounting will be done. So I'd like to ask Treasurer Patrick Nicteen to come in next meeting and talk to us about the software conversion and what it means to us and how we're going to read all these new numbers, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under new business, I'd like to get a report back on how there was a recent Supreme Court case. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago, in which the Supreme Court held that the civil forfeiture of vehicles is unconstitutional for municipalities and local governments as a violation of the Eighth Amendment, because they held that it was an excessive fine. So I want to know how that impacts our forfeiture program, and would like a report back on how that impacts our programs and what, if anything, we're going to do to comply with that new ruling. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to point out it's been an exciting week for basketball in the city of Peoria. I had the opportunity to go down to Bradley on Sunday night for the returning home ceremony from the men's basketball team going to the NCAA. And we just got notice that the Manual boys team is headed to state. They won their game tonight. So it's a great basketball week in the city of Peoria. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great news, and I'd add that the public is invited to the selection show watch party that Bradley will be having Sunday afternoon to determine who they're going to beat in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And that will be held at the Renaissance Coliseum at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Admission is free, and the public is welcome and invited. We would like to add our thanks and congratulations to Coach Wardle, the athletic director, Dr. Reynolds, and also President Gary Roberts and all of their team. Congratulations. Any other new business tonight? New business? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council.
Citizens to address. We have a 5-minute speaking limit. Just need your name for the record, please. Up first is Katie Vandenberg.
It's Katie Vandenberg, and I own rental property in Peoria while residing in Tremont. I've come here tonight to ask all of you for your opinion on if and why I should continue to invest in Peoria property. I know you all cannot speak directly to me tonight, but tomorrow I will email each of you my contact information, as well as everyone who is running for a seat on this council, and I will eagerly await your responses. A lack of response will signify to me that you have a vote of no confidence in Peoria as a good investment, and I will definitely take that into consideration as I make my ongoing financial plan and give advice to other landlords. I come to you because I'm really struggling with the idea of Peoria as a quality investment anymore. Being a landlord is a career path that I chose with the expectation of a certain level of financial compensation, as anyone does when they choose their job. Unfortunately, since I've begun to invest in Peoria, I've seen my compensation for providing safe, affordable, well-kept housing drop considerably. We own additional properties in West Peoria and Morton, and in 11 years, I have never had to raise my rent due to additional fees or taxes placed on those properties. Yet in 3 years in Peoria, I've already had to do that twice. The exceptionally frustrating part of all of this is that we pay more fees in Peoria, but get much less in return. Even if I did not have a degree in economics, I would know this is not a good deal for me. And my 8-year-old even recognizes this. I'm going to share a story with you. A few years back, the city hosted a bed bug workshop. Like most landlords, we have tenants show up with bed bugs in tow, and that can be a nightmare for us. I wanted to be proactive about preventing them and being able to treat them efficiently and effectively, so I attended this riveting day of learning. While I was there, the assistant community development director who spoke was rather harsh and threatening to landlords, telling us that if we did not use a good exterminator, then we could be fined heavily or shut down. I raised my hand and asked whom we should use in order to be in good standing with the city. He declined to comment there, but told me to email or call him. Thinking this sounded reasonable, the next day I did. And I called, and I called, and I called, and emailed and emailed. And then I called his boss, and emailed and called and emailed. Finally, a month later, after yet another email from me, I was forwarded to an assistant where I finally received the information that I was looking for. Every time I call the city of Peoria with a question, I'm treated poorly, as though I'm really making their lives difficult by doing my due diligence as a landlord. Even when I went to pay my landlord registration, which I think you all already know was a complete disaster with the way it was done this year, the woman who took my money would not even say hello or look at me. I would be okay with paying our registration fees and additional taxes if we would at least get something out of it, like basic human interaction when we have a question or show up to give you money. Perhaps I'm too much of a Pollyanna from east of the river, but I really cannot understand why anyone would act like that in a professional setting. If I call the village of Morton or email anyone in West Peoria, I receive a response within 1 day, sometimes even after hours. I hope that you all are brave enough to be willing to make some much-needed changes and budget cuts in the form of human resources. And if you're not, I certainly hope whoever gets elected is. From what I can tell, there's a ridiculous amount of waste on payroll. I'm not going to name names tonight, but I bet most of you know the people I'm referring to. I would wager that a fraction of their payroll could be spent on efficiency and customer service training. My overall point is that for the amount of additional fees we pay as landlords in this city, I would think we could be treated better instead of like criminals. The city could use that extra money to perhaps pay for some staff training, which could be aptly titled How to Reply to an Email in an Efficient Way or How to Greet a Customer. Instead, I see that our tax dollars and fees are spent on time for staff to create and maintain a new Instagram account called Appreciate Peoria, where they like to do silly things like sing songs and act goofy to supposedly boost morale. The irony is not lost on me that the song they all attempted most recently to guess and sing was one where the highly acclaimed singer Carly Rae Jepsen sings, "I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe." I can't help but wonder if the person who organized that stunt did so tongue-in-cheek. Please look for an email from me tomorrow, and I will eagerly anticipate your responses. Thank you.
Charles Williams.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank everybody. I come down today. I want to thank you. Happy New Year. I want to recognize one man tonight, the city manager. You got something coming from me. I didn't get it yet, but I come down. You've done a good job. And number 16911 North Kimberly Drive, Peoria, Illinois, my address. But Mr. Manager, your city manager, you've done a good job in Peoria, Illinois. Outstanding job. Well done. And I appreciate you being here, and I hope you stay here. You're a good man, and you're a Nova man. And if we didn't have this man here, I don't know what we would do. You know your stuff, and you've been doing it. Very, very respected for me. So I got nothing but thumbs up when I have my bad days. Keep doing it. Now, that's a good job, but you do. I only gave 3 awards out. You got 1 coming, 3 in my lifetime, and it's coming. But tonight, I want to focus on the police department. We got a problem in Peoria, Illinois, with young men out at night, like a Vietnam, 11-year-old with gun, shooting and robbing all over this city. And I think each and every one of you, the big bad wolf is out here. Everybody talking about every city got it. We don't worry about what the other city got. We need the police department to stop and frisk every single person that lives in Peoria, Illinois, immediately. This is no way to live. And I don't think it's right for me to be in the service, come back home, and live like this here. Robbing all over this city is a problem. And you, as elected official, you say you're going to do your job, do it. Some of you, I'm an upfront guy and straightforward. Some people don't like that. But that's the way I was trained in the military. My boss has been tough, and I'm tough. And I don't go to bed worried about how you feel about me. That's your problem. But you do your job. The city got to be safe. They don't have time to play with you. Everybody need to be safe. We don't have what Senator Dick Durbin got, a gate around you or somebody. We got to have protection. And we want to talk about something else, too. Sid and Council Sid and Elizabeth Jansen, I focus on both of y'all. I watch you guys all the time. I'm not picking on you, but I watch it. You said tonight that you want to know about that guy on the East Bluff giving out awards. Well, I'll tell you something. I just got a phone call last week. Up in New York, we got doctors and lawyers and police officers. They train. They take a bill and they train low-income people at night and try to better themselves. Why don't you guys take up what you said tonight and open up a building out there by Dollar Tree and where we could train some doctors and train these young men to do something? Worried about a food panel. I'm not worried about no food panel. I made it from South Georgia. I came up here and went in the Illinois National Guard and Air Force and the Sheriff's Department. We got jobs on the rise in Peoria. If you want a job, if we got jobs, it's jobs here. But I think the thing that we need to look at, you giving St. Francis every building. Every time you look around, you're giving St. Francis a building. You need to start looking at the education part. St. Francis don't need another building. We need to get the crime off the street in Peoria and quit making people leave Peoria, Illinois. Nobody want to come here because of crime. And I is sick and tired of the gun violence. We need to look at more cameras at night. When a car shoot, then you ought to put more, investigate where the cameras at. We can do better. And we're doing better. And I'm not angry, but I think we can improve the city. Let's look at more education for these young men. But we got to stop them, and we got to stay on top of them 24/7. And then we need to have, on Sunday, and get these patch these holes up on Sunday. And I think we're doing a good job, but we need to move forward into 2020. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and continue you guys and pray for the people of Alabama with that storm down there. It's been a terrible thing, 23 lives. That's tough, so keep it there in prayer. And thank you.
Thank you. Page Street Matter.
Good evening. My name is Street Matter. I reside in Peoria, Illinois. A few weeks ago, Mayor Artis gave his annual address concerning the state of the city of Peoria. After listening to it and reflecting on his rendition, I am convinced that his tale was a tale more akin to that of a make-believe Never Never Land. We recently learned that the city of Peoria is proposing a salary increase to the city manager. We all want a salary increase, certainly. In this case, however, is it all that justified by the results that have been achieved? The proposed salary increase is being proposed with the following results. The city of Peoria is the 5th worst city in the entire United States for African Americans. This is actually an improvement, as Peoria had previously ranked number 2. The city is currently the worst city in the entire state of Illinois. Let's look at how well the city is a steward of the money they receive from the taxpayers. When we do that, it's not very encouraging. We have out-of-control pension costs. To bail out the city for the growing pension obligations, where does the city look? The property owners for a per-property fee of at least $50. So on top of the ever-increasing real estate taxes, this annual fee of $50 will be imposed. Does anyone really believe this fee will remain at that level? I don't. Unfortunately, my belief is founded in reality, not in the make-believe Never Never Land. My belief is founded in the past experiences of the Peoria landlords with ever-increasing fees for rental registration. What started out as a $25 annual fee has now blossomed into the cash cow to be milked at the rate as high as $250 per property, $75 per property if you're a perfect landlord. What is the benefit of this program anyway? I know of one landlord whose property is properly registered with all contact information properly up to date, and yet there is a fire at his property and a call is not made until a day or so later. Why isn't this information readily available or accessible by the responding agencies, fire department, city, police department? What value does a rental registration program bring to the taxpayers of the city? Of course, I mean value, other than simply bringing in dollars for the city. Maybe these increasing fees are the result of the city recently paying out $2 million to cover the costs of money owed related to the potential city buyout of the water company. Does anyone really think that the city can provide better water services and cheaper rates than that of Illinois American Water already does? Does anyone really believe in Realville and not in the Never Never Land that the rates will not simply increase as yet another simple cash cow? Well, what about the $7 million error with the Pier Marquette? So the city decides to make a loan, which professional bankers would not even make? Of course, in Never Never Land, all dreams and wishes come true. In the city of Peoria, what's true is ever-increasing taxes, fees, and empty storefronts. Now we have the additional fees simply because it rains. I had to chuckle while reading a news article a few weeks ago about the express shock of taxpayers of a city on the east coast of the U.S. as they were reeling from the floated idea of taxing property owners to deal with rainwater runoff. Imagine that, you're taxed because it rains. I wanted to call out a radio station and tell them that they were late to this taxing dance as it has been playing in Peoria for some time now. Of course, there have been numerous skips in that record, and most residents can attest to the unpredictable nature of the timing and billing statements as well as the amounts. Now I move on to the just ridiculous cost to the taxpayers. How can we forget the national press the city of Peoria received from Mayor Artis and Twittergate? That little tale cost at least $225,000 before we even begin to look at, costs such as employee time spent dealing with the issue outside of council fees. Similar to that, we have the alleged misconduct of the former police chief for the city of Peoria. The city had to retain an outside law firm to conduct an investigation into that matter. How much were those fees and expenses? How many potholes could have been filled with those funds? And how can we forget the alleged hanky-panky that was taking place in a city of Peoria taxpayer-purchased car, clearly labeled as a city car, on a leisurely drive to Stark County between two city employees. Of course, after the driver already enjoyed a workout on city time. One would think that these types of things can only happen in a make-believe never, never land type reality. It is time the taxpayers of the city of Peoria get rid of the council members who continue to want to believe they are never, never land, playing with make-believe money and not the hard-earned money of city taxpayers. Thank you.
Kevin Jones.
Kevin Jones, Morton, Illinois. So again, the topic that I always want to discuss is your incompetent community development. That doesn't change. So tonight I want to specifically talk about your director, who I know all of you are very aware of, and I hope he's downstairs listening. The thing that disturbs me the most is that I try to call two council people to set up a meeting with the director, which takes close to a month to get. I understand he must be a busy individual. But when I do get the appointment, I sit down with Councilman Rodrigo and Euler and start to go over my concerns, and he gets up and says, "I'm done," and walks out of the room. You two, I can't imagine how that had to make you feel. I can tell you, if I was in your position, he would have been told to set his ass down then and there, and we were going to have a conversation. Here's what I'm going to talk about. I purchased a home back in November on Ann Street, and it's on a cul-de-sac. There's a house to the right of it, and to the right of that is a vacant lot. On the vacant lot, there is a 12 to 14-foot cargo trailer with a tarp over it that has bungee cords on it. To the right of that lot, there's commercial fencing that is stacked up in the corner. I called your Peoria Cares hotline, which is worthless if it's a landlord calling. I want to note it was a homeowner to the right of me. On 11/19, I made a phone call to community development at 11:38 a.m. No response. 11/28, 2018, 4:44 p.m. I voiced my concerns. No response. 12/7/18, 9:16 a.m. Voiced my concerns again. Didn't get a phone call back. 12/13, 2018, 4:35 p.m. Addressed my concerns again. No call back. 12/18, 2018, 1:59 p.m. No phone call back. These are all my cell phone records that I pulled. So I called Joe Doolin, the assistant director, who I said is incompetent, and I asked, number one, is it a code violation to have your cargo trailer with a tarp on it parked on a vacant lot, not on a pavement? Yes. Is the chain link fence a violation? Yes. I will address it. Never heard anything back. I was told it's being worked on, okay? Here is worked on. He was told that he had a month to get his stuff in order, or they would deal with it in another area. Month rolls by, we have some weather, some snow, nothing's done. I then call, where are we at with this? I reach out to Councilman Rodrigo. He goes down there, takes a look at it, verifies that I have a legitimate complaint, says, let me look into it. I'll get back with you. Still, nothing done. So here is how your incompetent director makes you guys, now, get a little thick skin when I say this, okay? Makes you guys look like idiots. Here's why I say that. In his own words, he tells this homeowner, you can go and get two of these. And for the people that are at home viewing that have my backside because they no longer film you from the front side for whatever reason, they're two pavers. You stick them under the tires. That is your paved surface. That, by Peoria standards, by you guys sitting around here, that is considered a paved surface and is 110% acceptable. And that's who you have leading your community development department. What I would suggest is that you strongly look at his history, his performance, and you get an executive session, and rather than stare at each other, you come up with a solution that he is competent, that he's held accountable, not getting up, walking out of meetings, but listening to your constituents, your taxpayers, and addressing their concerns. They go way beyond this. This is just the latest example. I would like another meeting, set up the time, call me, and see if you can't pin him down. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
We have an executive session.
Mr. Leist.
Yes, Your Honor. A motion would be appropriate pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Act, which exempts discussions relative to the performance of a specific employee. In addition, 2C11, which exempts discussions relative to pending or threatened litigation. And finally, Your Honor, a motion would be appropriate pursuant to Section 2C21, which exempts the discussion of previously approved closed session minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to go into executive session by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Sear. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Sear. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. We'd like to thank H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. And this evening's meeting is adjourned.